An analysis of Mark Rothko and Frank Stella. Mark Rothko is a Russian-born American, who's 56 in this photo. He was born Marcus Rothkowitz on September 25, 1903, in Dvinsk, Russia, now Latvia. In 1913, he left Russia and settled with the rest of his family in Portland, Oregon, then moved to New York in 1923. He participated in his first group exhibition at the Opportunity Galleries in New York, 1928. Rothko's first solo exhibition in New York was held at the Contemporary Arts Gallery in 1933. In 1935, he was a founding member of the Ten, a group of artists sympathetic to abstraction and expressionism. In the early 1940s, he worked closely with Gottlieb, developing a painting style with mythological content, simple flat shapes, and imagery inspired by primitive art. By the mid-decade, his work incorporated surrealist techniques and images. Peggy Guggenheim gave Rothko a solo show at Art of the Century in New York in 1945. The late 1940s and early 1950s saw the emergence of Rothko's mature style, in which frontal, luminous rectangles seemed to hover on the canvas surface. The Museum of Modern Art, New York, gave Rothko an important solo exhibition in 1961. He completed murals for Harvard University in 1962. Rothko took his own life on February 25, 1970, in his New York studio. A year later, the Rothko Chapel in Houston was dedicated. Rothko painted in the style of abstract expressionism, which originated in New York circa 1940. The designation abstract expressionism encompasses a wide variety of post-war American painting. The formal qualities of this painting included a lack of figuration and loose brushwork. Abstract expressionism is a type of art in which the artist expresses himself purely through the use of form and color. It is non-representational or non-objective art, which means that there are no actual objects represented. The expressive aspect of this art has been linked to the subjective heroism of earlier forms of expressionism, as well as the surrealist technique of automatic writing. The influence of surrealists and other artists who fled Europe for New York in the late 1930s and 1940s was integral to the development of abstract expressionism. Another component of the abstract expressionist school was known as color field painting. It was characterized by large areas of a more or less flat, single color, often used to evoke invisible spiritual states. These color field painters included Barnett Newman and Mark Rothko. It differed from abstract expressionism in that these artists eliminated both the emotional, mythic, or religious content of the earlier movement, and the highly personal and painterly or gestural application associated with it. The most important aspect to remember about color field painting is the large areas of color in the paintings. Think of it as a field of color, both large and open. Rothko painted magenta, black, green on orange, which is an oil-on-canvas painting in the MoMA, New York. It is 7 feet, 1 3/8 of an inch by 5 feet, 5 inches. Frank Stella, pictured here at age 28, was born on May 12, 1936, in Malden, Massachusetts. After attending high school at Phillips Academy in Andover, Massachusetts, he went on to Princeton University, where he painted and majored in history. Early visits to New York art galleries would prove to be an influence upon his artistic development. Stella moved to New York in 1958 after his graduation. Stella's art was recognized for its innovations before he was 25. In 1959, several of his paintings were included in the Three Young Americans at the Allen Memorial Art Museum in Oberlin College, as well as in the 16 Americans at the Museum of Modern Art in New York from 1959 to 1960. Stella's early series included the black paintings from 1958 to 1960, aluminum paintings in 1960, and copper paintings from 1960 to 1961. Stella's irregular polygon canvases from 1965 to 1967 and protractor series from 1967 to 1971 further extended the concept of the shaped canvas. Stella's work was included in several important exhibitions that defined 1960s art, among them the Solomon R. Guggenheim Museum's The Shaped Canvas from 1964 to 1965, and Systematic Painting in 1966. His art has been the subject of several retrospectives in the United States, Europe, and Japan. Frank Stella continues to live and work in New York. Frank Stella painted in the style of minimalism, which originated in New York in the 1960s. Minimalism refers to painting or sculpture made with an extreme economy of means and reduced to the essentials of geometric abstraction. Minimalist art is generally characterized by precise, hard-edged, unitary geometric forms, rigid planes of color, usually cool hues or commercially mixed colors, or sometimes single color. Non-hierarchical mathematical regular compositions, often based on a grid. It involves the reduction to pure self-referential form, emptied of all external references, and an anonymous surface appearance, without any gestural inflection. In minimal art, what is important is how the viewer perceives the internal relationships among the parts of the work and of the parts to the whole. Specifically, Frank Stella painted in the style known as hard edge, which involved using masking tape to achieve perfect edges. Hard edge painters often went to great efforts to depersonalize their compositions, in order to prioritize formal elements such as line, shape, and color. They also did this in order to downplay what they believed to be less important elements, such as spirituality or emotionalism. Similarly, unlike more traditional color-filled painters, who regarded color as the most important element in their work, hard edge painters were more interested in design and structure. Stella painted Empress of India, which is a metallic powder and polymer emulsion paint on canvas, currently in the MoMA, New York. It is 6 feet, 5 inches by 18 feet, 8 inches. Lastly, a direct comparison between the two artists, while also outlining the elements and principles of design present in their works. Both artists had large-scale works, while Stella's works were large in the sense that they were installations. Stella's works feature many repetitive, two-dimensional lines which created a pattern and sense of rhythm. The geometric shapes in his works were defined by or comprised of these lines. Several of Stella's canvases were also polygonal shapes. Rothko's works feature no lines, and his more organic shapes are defined by color. The shapes in Rothko's paintings have rough edges, which blend into each other and create a visual flicker between the shapes. These shapes may also lend themselves to a sense of contrast or emphasis. Neither Stella's nor Rothko's works feature any three-dimensional form or texture, save perhaps for the rough edges of the shapes in Rothko's work. The shapes in the works of both artists lend themselves to a strong sense of unity. The colors in Rothko's works involve many near-primary and more simple colors with little variation in tone. Stella would often use complementary color schemes with a greater variety of colors. The balance in Rothko's works and Stella's earlier work is near symmetrical, unbalanced only by the slight roughness of the shapes. In Stella's later work, the geometric shapes would create very symmetrical balance. In terms of recognition, Rothko's works became much more valuable after his death. While many might think, hey, I could do that, the fact is that they didn't, and they probably wouldn't have had it not been for Rothko breaking barriers for future artists. This is why his art, no matter how simple it is so valuable. It's not the content, it's who painted it.